Alright, the last thing we're going to learn about here is how to solve equations by factoring. So whenever you solve equations, you must realize that you are setting an equation equal to 0, and when you are setting things equal to items equal to 0, what you're going to have to do is you're actually going to solve an equation. So some equations can be solved by factoring, and some are going to be used by what we call the zero product property. Not like a name really means that much to you. I mean, most of you guys probably don't call me really Mr. Klein anyway. It's instead mean words underneath your breath. But what we're going to do is we're going to be using our zero product property, and we're going to factor our terms first. So let's look at example 5. Here it says we have to solve each equation, check your solutions. Notice for A, these are already solved, or this is already factored. You already have your terms in sets of parentheses. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take x minus 2. We're going to take that set of parentheses and set it equals 0. And then we're going to take 4x minus 1. We're going to take that set of parentheses and set it equal to 0. So if we solve each of these problems, we're going to have two solutions. So in order to get x minus 2 equals 0, get x by itself, you add 2 to both sides. And you're going to get an x equals 2, so there's one answer. And in order to get x by itself in your second equation, you're going to add 1, and we're going to get 4x is equal to 1. And then we must divide both sides by a 4, and this is a 1 over 4, not 4 over 1. So your answer actually ends up being x equals a 1/4. So we have two solutions. The way you write two solutions is you need to put them in braces. You can put them in any order, however it would help if you put them in numerical order. 1/4 is smaller than 2, so we're going to go 1/4, comma 2, and you put those in braces, and you are golden. So let's see if we can solve B. B only has one set of parentheses. Well, 3a is not inside parentheses, but you could write them in parentheses. You could say, well, this is really 3a times an a plus 2. So we're going to set 3a equal to 0, and we're also going to set a plus 2 equal to 0. You don't have to write 3a in parentheses. Just for some people, it helps them out a little bit. So we need to figure out 3 times what number gives us 0. Well, how about if we take 3a divided by 3. So that's 3 times an a. Get rid of multiplication, you have to divide. So 3's cancel. A is equal to 0. Booyah! One of my favorite answers. And so next we need to subtract 2 and subtract 2. On your next equation, we get a equals -2. So once again, we have two solutions. We need to write it in braces, and I'm going to put the smaller number first, and then our bigger number. So our two solutions are -2 and 0. If you put these in parentheses, that's not two x values. Those would be an x and a y. So make sure you are not putting them in parentheses. Make sure they are in braces. Now, unfortunately for C, this is not in nice factored form. So what we're going to have to do is we are going to factor this problem. But you must first set your equation equal to 0. Notice how each of these were set equal to 0 up here? This one is not. So we need to set our equation equal to 0 first, and then we're going to factor, and then we can solve. So it doesn't matter if you move the 4y to the right or 12y squared to the left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually subtract 4y. You will get the same answers in the end. And you end up with a 0 on the left and a 12y squared minus 4y. So after you do this, what you must do next is you must factor. And you're going to factor just like we did in your first two examples. You're going to take out a GCF. So if we look at 12 and a 4, the biggest number 12 and 4 have in common would be a 4. So we're going to take a 4 out. And then if you look at your y's, the biggest y that each have in common is just 1. So we're going to take a 4y out of your 2 terms. So we're going to have a 4y out here. Remember, this is called your GCF, greatest common factor. And if you divide each of these by a 4y, 12 divided by 4 is a 3. Y squared over y is a y. Now the tricky part is the next part. 4 divided by 4, you have a minus sign. 4 divided by 4 is a 1. Y divided by y is a 1, so you have a 1. Some of you are going to do like this. Yeah, how can you have a 3y minus nothing? That doesn't make sense. So make sure if you are dividing something by itself, you are making that a minus 1. So finally, what we're going to do is then we are going to solve for each y. And we're going to have 2 problems, 2 equations, just like we did up here in A. Notice how this is set up very similar. So we're going to set 4y equal to 0. And then we're also going to set 3y minus 1 equal to 0. And when we do that, if you divide both sides by 4, here for the first one, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 0 divided by 4 is 0. And for 3y minus 1 equals 0, if we add 1 to both sides, and then we get 3y equals a 1, we need to divide each side by 3. We get a fraction, and you get y equals a 1/3. So to write your final solution, you write this as 0, 1/3. So example C had a little more work in it, or 5C. A and B were not too bad, but make sure as you're going through your homework, you can always reference these videos and you can look back. They will be up on Edmodo, so you can check them. And don't forget, you better chickadee check yourself before you riggedy wreck yourself. Klein out.